Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're diving into all the revelations from the industry-shattering documentary series Quiet on Set: The Dark Side of Kids TV. These videos are from our sister channel, Miss Mojo, and we're starting with all the shocking reveals.
I've been waiting 17 years for today.
Welcome to Ms. Mojo, and today we're looking at the biggest bombshells from Investigation Discovery's 4-part expose about Nickelodeon.
Everyone knew it, from New York to California. So who would we go to? Who could we possibly go to complain about this?
Amanda Bynes replaced Katrina Johnson.
I had less and less and less and then no time with Dan. So the new favorite had arrived. I was out.
From 1994 to 1997, Katrina Johnson was the youngest cast member of Nickelodeon's hit sketch comedy series, All That. During her time on the show, she was one of Dan Schneider's favorite young actors, and as she recalled in the docuseries, he even considered giving Johnson her own show. But as she got older, her appearance became an issue for the producers, particularly her weight, which they called attention to.
I mean, that stuck with me. You can't be the fat one. Like, I still hear those words in my head to this day.
With the addition of rising star Amanda Bynes in 1996, Johnson felt she was progressively sidelined by her former mentor, and she left the show a year later. Schneider would go on to be a significant figure in shaping Bynes' successful career, which some people, including her parents, saw as concerning.
Maybe at the time, people viewed it as comedy, but I think now some people are very uncomfortable with the implication.
Gender discrimination and a toxic work environment. In the late 90s, Nickelodeon producer Dan Schneider created a spin-off series to All That centered on Amanda Bynes. For Christy Stratton and Jenny Kilgan, the only women in the Amanda Show writers' room, it was a dream job.
I had been in LA for 7 years, and so it felt very satisfying that someone was gonna pay me to write comedy.
However, there were red flags from the start. Stratton and Kilgan were made to share one salary between them, which isn't exactly legal, and along with other female staffers, they allegedly endured Schneider's misogynistic behavior, degrading jokes and harassment.
I don't want to talk about that. I mean, it's not that I'm not proud of it, and I'm also like, ugh. Thinking about it now, yeah, it's like, oh boy, I just think of that poor girl and what she had to, go through.
Stratton was reportedly fired shortly before the end of season 1. Kilgan quit just days into season 2 and filed a lawsuit against the production company for gender discrimination, ultimately settling out of court. The awful experience had a lasting impact on their careers in the television industry.
I knew that this was the end of my career, so it had better be worth it. Like, it had better stop. And to learn that it didn't stop, that it was all for nothing.
Sexualizing the female casts. In the early 2020s, people revisiting Nickelodeon shows from their childhood have noticed that some content was undeniably bizarre, bordering on the explicit.
Once I saw it again as an adult was when that memory came back. So I was like, wasn't funny. It still isn't funny to me.
Old webisodes of Ariana Grande went viral, showing her Victorious and Salmon Cat character Cat Valentine attempting to juice a potato, among other suggestive acts. Former employees also noted that Schneider was instrumental in choosing revealing clothing for the young cast and writing adult jokes into the episodes.
It was clear that there was a permissibility around these sexualized jokes with children.
It was par for the course. Like, strange things amuse Dan, and that was just one of the things he thought was funny.
Prior to Quiet on Set, Zoe 101 cast member Alexa Nikolas had already been vocal about her discomfort working on the show. Although she doesn't appear in the docuseries, they reference Jeanette McCurdy's 2022 memoir, I'm Glad My Mom Died, in which she detailed the creator's verbal abuse and inappropriate interactions.
He'll call people idiots, buffoons, stupid, dumb, sloppy, careless, and spineless. The creator knows how to make someone feel worthless.
Inappropriate adult humor.
I remember someone from Nickelodeon sitting with us and saying like, oh, does this mean, this dirty thing? And Dan was like, no. Why would you think that's like tainted, like you've tainted something? And they were like, okay.
Kids programming tends to have some jokes and references for the parents, but Dan Schneider shows like All That and The Amanda Show often crossed a line. For From character names with slang terms to costumes with phallic imagery, it was clear to some people behind the scenes what the writers were alluding to.
Wait, why is this in the show? What is the joke here exactly? There's this weird element of like, they all were able to like pull a fast one and get away with it. And that's like a part of the joke.
Crew members and parents would notice questionable jokes and sexual innuendo, but the environment made it difficult to express these concerns, especially to Schneider. And as former cast members recall in the docuseries, they were often uncomfortable with the material, even if they didn't know exactly what the innuendos meant.
I'm just looking back at it, it's just very strange. Frankly, it was just uncomfortable.
Traumatizing on-air dares. Nickelodeon's On-Air Dare segment was essentially Fear Factor for kids, challenging the young actors to endure gross and scary dares on camera. All That cast members Kyle Sullivan and Brian Christopher Hearne recounted moments on the show that made them extremely uncomfortable for themselves and their castmates.
Those were particularly traumatic, and they were sort of designed to be. The whole idea was that you would have to do something scary on camera, and they got pretty scary.
Hearne had one particularly awful challenge of getting covered in peanut butter and laying down as multiple dogs licked it off of him on stage. In the video clip from the segment, he clearly says that he doesn't like it.
I don't like this. I feel gross.
Sullivan pointed out just how torturous it could be, with challenges that involved worms, dead fish, and scorpions. Young viewers would likely see this as funny, but for the actual participants, it was anything but.
I think that people kind of just look at us and go, you made some money, so what are you complaining about? And yeah, we collect our money, sure, but at what cost?
Racist sketches starring black child actors.
My time on Nickelodeon played a big part in how I dealt and still deal with racial issues.
With shows such as Kenan and Kel, Nickelodeon always seemed to value and encourage diversity. But in the docuseries, All That stars Giovanni Samuels and Brian Christopher Hearne said that compared to their white castmates, they felt, quote, overlooked.
I understood the magnitude of being the token black girl, but I didn't realize how significant that was until years later.
Hearne recalled a hurtful incident when a strange character required him to wear a bodysuit, and someone offensively joked about the skin tone color it should be. But fearing repercussions, he didn't say anything back.
Whoever was doing my makeup at the time was kind of like, hand on my shoulder, like, it's gonna be okay, like, don't worry about that he just said.
Samuels and Hearne also occasionally had to play into racial stereotypes. Hearne's mother, Tracy, discussed a sketch that she viewed as racist, one where her son pretended to sell cookies but believed it was made to seem like he was really selling illegal substances. Jason Handy allegations. As a production assistant on Nickelodeon shows All That and The Amanda Show, Jason Handy was a familiar face to young actors and their parents. Speaking in the docuseries, MJ details how her daughter Brandy booked a background role in one episode and began corresponding with Handy via email.
She let me read it, and it was a very innocent email. It just talked about the shows that he had been working on.
But what she thought was seemingly harmless progressed into him sending her an explicit photo. And while MJ didn't go to the police herself, Handy was finally arrested in April 2003 and charged with multiple felony counts involving inappropriate acts and material.
Keep your trust in God and don't forget me. You and all the kids are why I work for free half the week. I love ya, Jason.
He pled no contest and received a 6-year sentence. Shockingly, he wasn't the only convicted predator employed by Nickelodeon. Registered sex offender Ezel Channel, another Nickelodeon employee, was arrested in 2005.
When you look at having multiple child predators who worked at Nickelodeon, it raises some confusing questions on who to hold accountable.
Brian Peck's connection to John Wayne Gacy.
I'm not just Pickle Boy, but I'm also a trained professional who works here on the set of All That. You can tell by my very important-looking headset.
Like Jason Handy, Brian Peck was well known at Nickelodeon, though the acting and dialogue coach was much more involved and even appeared on screen at times. Kyle Sullivan recalled a get-together he attended at Peck's home where he found a weird portrait of a clown.
Brian got very excited when I asked him about it. He flipped the thing around, and on the back it said, "To Brian, I hope you enjoy the painting. Best wishes, your friend, John Wayne Gacy."
He learned that the man had a disturbing, quote, pen pal relationship with John Wayne Gacy, a convicted serial killer who targeted young men. Even at his age, Sullivan knew this was strange. However, he alleged that other guests, including adults and parents, also saw Peck's collection of letters and art from Gacy.
In his nightstand next to his bed, and he like pulls them out and starts showing them to me. Your instinct is to give someone the benefit of the doubt. If you've known them for that long, even in the face of like this really bad sign.
Drake Bell was John Doe.
Have you ever told your story publicly before?
I've never told my story publicly.
Quiet on Set centered its third episode on Drake Bell, former star of The Amanda Show and Drake and Josh. For the first time, the actor-musician detailed the alleged abuse he suffered at the hands of Brian Peck as a young actor.
You know, anytime I would have an audition or anytime I needed to work on dialogue or anything, I somehow ended up back at Brian's house. And it just got worse and worse and worse.
The acting and dialogue coach became a constant presence, managing to turn Bell and others against his father, who was his manager. Peck was arrested just months after Jason Handy in 2003. Due to his age at the time, Bell's name was kept hidden and he was referred to as John Doe, something very few people knew until now.
Fortunately, there was no therapy and was left to my own devices, which at that age probably isn't the best thing.
Peck's famous supporters. Drake Bell was in attendance at the day of the sentencing for Brian Peck in October 2004. Though he was relieved his tormentor was finally caught, Bell was shocked to see the amount of support he received from notable people in the industry.
His entire side of the courtroom was full. Full. There were definitely some recognizable faces on that side of the room.
These included Growing Pains cast members Alan Thicke and Joanna Kearns, The Amanda Show crew members Rich and Beth Carell, along with actors James Marsden and Taran Killam. In 2024, Boy Meets World stars Will Friedle and Ryder Strong claimed their letters were based on misinformation.
You know, he had Ryder and I write letters of support to the judge. And these are things we did. And again, we did them because we were then lied to. We weren't told the whole story. But it doesn't change the fact that we did it.
Peck pled no contest, was sentenced to 16 months in prison, and was required to register as a sex offender. Still, he went on to work in Hollywood, even briefly on Disney Channel's The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody.
There are not enough protections in place to keep even convicted sexual predators off of kids' TV shows.
Did you watch Quiet on Set?
It's a house of horrors. No kidding. House of horrors.
Quiet on Set, the dark side of kids' TV garnered so much attention worldwide that the series actually put out an additional episode. Here's what we learned from that one.
So there's a clip. It's never been seen before.
Welcome to Ms. Mojo, and today we're looking at the most shocking reveals from the 5th episode of Quiet on Set.
You sort of have this like moment of hold your breath. Is it what's gonna really happen?
The aftermath with Drake Bell. Almost 2 decades after Brian Peck was sentenced to 16 months in prison, Drake Bell opened up about his traumatic experience. In episode 5, Bell discussed the reactions to his harrowing account in a virtual interview from Mexico City.
So many people really need to hear what you had to say. You talk a lot about being alone, being isolated, and so I think what you're doing is really important.
Bell received an outpouring of support online, but at the time this follow-up interview was recorded, he had yet to receive a direct apology from anyone who wrote a letter defending Peck. Bell revealed that Josh Peck did get in touch with him, calling his former co-star, quote, a great person.
This is a really difficult thing to process. But at the end of the day, you know, we have such a close connection and this unique bond that's so rare in this industry.
Bell also defended his mother, now being in a good place with her and his father. Outside of Dan Schneider, though, Bell claims that nobody at Nickelodeon reached out when the allegations first surfaced.
Dan was really the only one from the network that even made an effort to help me and make sure I was okay.
Will Friedle's response.
I get to the courthouse. It was the most unbelievable thing I'd ever seen. His entire side of the courtroom was full.
Bell was shocked to find many familiar faces on Brian Peck's side of the courtroom, including actor Will Friedle. Along with his Boy Meets World co-star Ryder Strong, Friedle wrote Peck a character letter, not having all the details about the allegations. Sitting in court, Friedle quickly regretted ever supporting or believing Peck, discussing his mistake on Pod Meets World.
The victim's mother turned and said, look at all the famous people you brought with you, and it doesn't change what you did to my kid.
Mm.
And I just sat there wanting to die, where it was like, what the hell am I doing here?
Later working together on Ultimate Spider-Man, Bell noted that Friedle had opportunities to apologize, but the subject never arose. Bell now sees the position that Friedle and Strong were in, although that doesn't erase the past.
That's the thing that's hard about this, is because everybody deals with their trauma in different ways. Everybody comes to different conclusions at different times in their lives and realizations. And I mean, I really appreciate that they've, their perspective now.
After episode 5 was taped, Bell revealed that he had recently spoken to Strong, posting, quote, "We are all healing together. I have nothing but love and forgiveness for him." Reactions to Dan Schneider's, quote, apology. Between the 4th and 5th episodes, Dan Schneider responded to Quiet on Set in a YouTube interview conducted by Boogie, aka Tebow from iCarly. The comment section was turned off, although All That co-stars Brian Hearne and Giovanni Samuels summed up the general reaction.
What do you think when he says that? Oh, there's the sighing here that's happening. I don't know if you guys can hear this. The deep sighing.
Schneider's response didn't seem sincere to them, noting his acting background. They also found the timing suspicious, saying that Schneider remained silent after Jeanette McCurdy published her book, and Angelique Bates discussed her time on All That.
And I just feel that what's an apology without accountability? Realistically.
While Schneider argued that he championed diversity, Hearne and Samuels noted that he didn't mention their names. Yet shortly before the doc aired, Schneider asked Samuels for support, believing she enjoyed working on All That. In reality, Samuels was, quote, terrified of Schneider.
Was he surprised by that?
I don't know. I said, you have the power to make people stars. And I was intimidated by you. I wanted to do a good job.
Shane Lyons' time on All That. In addition to follow-up interviews, Episode 5 offered a new perspective from former actor Shane Lyons.
Why did you want to come forward?
I think the only way we can change is to really evaluate the past.
After not being invited back to All That, Lyons followed in his parents' footsteps, becoming a successful chef and restaurant owner, even appearing on the Food Network. Reflecting on Brian Peck, Lyons concurred that he was as charming as he was deceptive.
We were enamored with, at least me personally, that there is an adult who's also a cast member, who is someone that we knew we could kind of run things by, work with, improvise with. It was very helpful in that context.
Although Lyons alleged that Peck made multiple passes at him, he didn't suffer the abuse Bell went through. The older Lyons got, the more he realized how inappropriate Peck acted on set. In one such instance, Peck asked the underage Lyons if he was familiar with the term, "We're not sure we can say it on YouTube, but no adult should question a minor about it."
Would I ever have a conversation with a 13-year-old boy like he had with me? No. It makes absolutely zero sense for a 13-year-old girl or 13-year-old anybody. These are kids. Why are you talking like that?
The pressure to laugh. When asked about the innuendos and suggestive humor in his shows, Schneider contended that kids found these jokes funny back in the day. Now that they're older, they view those jokes differently.
So, back then, did you think those jokes were funny to hear? Did you think those jokes were funny to do?
No.
Brian Hearne and Giovanni Samuels were the target demographic when they starred on All That. Yet a lot of the routines they participated in went over their heads. Since the other adults were laughing, the young actors figured they were doing something right.
He thought the foot stuff was funny. You're like, I'm a paid actor.
get it.
I'm going to execute on the foot stuff.
Yeah.
And then you kind of look to your left.
And everybody in the room, or at least the adults, are laughing. You go along with it.
Schneider had created several successful shows and launched numerous careers. So might as well laugh along with him, even if you don't understand his humor or fascination with feet. Their laughter on set might have been forced, but Hearne and Samuels genuinely laughed watching Schneider's apology.
My thing about his interview as a whole is I thought it was funny.
Raquel Lee Ballou's racist experience.
Breathe in, breathe out. She's the star of the show.
In a never-before-seen clip from her interview, Raquel Lee Ballou recounted an Amanda Show sketch called The Literals. As the name suggests, the skit centers on a family that takes everything literally. Thus, when Amanda Bynes' character is asked to spit it out, she spits water on Ballou and Lindsay Bartleson, the latter of whom only appeared in this one episode. Ballou recalls being spit in the face multiple times, finding it more infuriating than funny.
Everybody thought it was so funny. Ha ha ha. Everybody's laughing. Me, I did not find it funny.
The director eventually took Ballou aside, saying that Bynes was the show's star and not to make trouble. The director asked Bynes not to aim at her face, but insisted that Ballou, quote, keep her cool. Ballou didn't return for episode 5, although Tracy Brown described the experience as, quote, racist.
We are culturally trained to take it. They are not.
And imagine that little girl saying, I don't want to do that, right? I don't want to do this. What would happen?
Tokenism on all that.
Count the black people.
Yeah, you count who's in the room, in front and behind the camera. And there were two
people.
3 of the original 7 All That cast members were black. The show seemed to take steps backward throughout the seasons. Brian Hearne being the only black male cast member and Giovanni Samuels the only black female cast member when All That was relaunched. In addition to feeling tokenized, Hearne and Samuels were pressured to represent black boys and girls everywhere.
It's not even just black, it's indigenous, it's, Hispanic. You can't just have the one representing the whole world. It doesn't make sense to me.
That was pressure.
It didn't help that both felt underutilized on the show. Samuels would hear the excuse that she was, quote, so talented that the showrunners didn't know what to do with her. In response, Samuels attempted to come up with her own sketches, but she always got pigeonholed as the, quote, token black girl. After Hearne got let go from the show, Samuels was the only black cast member left.
I think the main point of us participating in this documentary was to make sure that this doesn't continue.
Brian and Tracy's relationship. The previous Quiet on Set episodes touched upon Brian Hearne's struggles post-child stardom.
Getting kicked off the show definitely was the stage setter for a lot of issues that I still face today as a black man in therapy. A lot of issues that I'm currently overcoming.
In episode 5, he sat down with his mother, Tracy Brown, discussing how the two became estranged after his unceremonious exit from All That. Although Hearne blamed himself, he no longer trusted his mother, believing she was partially responsible for rocking the boat on set.
How bad was your relationship? I mean, obviously at 13.
With my son?
Yeah, how bad did it get?
It was ruined.
It wasn't, and for 6 months, I was really mad at my mom.
No, it was all of his life.
Yeah.
From 13 on.
Hearne wasn't the same from then on, drifting further away from his mom and even running away from home. It wasn't until they were invited to participate in this documentary that the two reconnected. Brown texted her son on Valentine's Day before Quiet on Set premiered. Hearne responded, "Happy Valentine's Day, Mom." It was the most contact they had shared in some time.
I can talk to 13, 14-year-old Brian now and say, this wasn't your fault. It wasn't her fault. These people had it out for y'all.
The lack of media coverage in Brian Peck's trial. You'd assume Brian Peck's trial would have dominated headlines, especially since this happened shortly after Jason Handy's arrest. As Drake Bell and host Soledad O'Brien pointed out in episode 5, only a handful of outlets reported on the trial.
Nothing.
No articles. I mean, there's nothing about it. I mean, I think there was something on the nightly news about the arrest.
Even the ones that did moved on to the next news story fairly quickly. Around the same time as the trial, director Amy J. Berg explored the disturbing correlation between child stars and predators in the documentary An Open Secret, which briefly mentions Peck.
There are people who don't want this out. The studios work to make sure this isn't very public.
Just as that documentary couldn't find a Hollywood distributor, the articles surrounding Peck got brushed under the rug. The trial is finally receiving the attention it should have gotten in 2004, showing that little has likely improved in nearly 20 years.
It allowed him to go work on other shows, go work on other kids' shows, on other kids' networks.
The legal loophole.
The thing I have found really shocking, I guess, is the idea that this wasn't a bigger scandal 21 years ago.
The only thing more shocking than Brian Peck's arrest, trial, and conviction is that he got a short-lived job on The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody not long after his release. One could attribute this to the limited media coverage and Peck's high-profile friends. As Shane Lyons pointed out in episode 5, the main reason could be that the producers of kids shows aren't required to conduct background checks.
And I think more broadly, when you have a cult of personality in any work environment, inevitably, it's ripe for toxicity.
As long as a parent is present on set, networks like Nickelodeon and Disney Channel can hire people without looking into whether they're registered sex offenders. The issues explored in Quiet on Set won't be fixed with easy change. But if this one legal loophole can be prevented, the industry will become infinitely safer overnight.
What does it look like?
So updating the law first and foremost, so that no individual who is a convicted can ever get on a Hollywood set again.
Did you watch Quiet on Set episode 5? Do you think there will be an episode 6 or season 2?
As you might expect, a shocking expose of this nature brings about a flood of reactions. Well, here now is a roundup of all the celebrity reactions out there.
Hey, I'm checking in. Tell me, what's going on?
Welcome to Ms. Mojo, and today we're looking at the famous people who've publicly commented on Investigation Discovery's shocking docuseries.
You don't even know what accountability is. You're searching for it maybe, but you haven't landed on it. That's for sure.
Amber Frank.
What are you gonna do? What can I do? If I tell her the truth, she'll freak out. If I don't, she'll feel like I'm hiding something. So you've got options?
Quiet on Set focused on the production environments of some of Dan Schneider's most popular Nickelodeon shows like All That, The Amanda Show, and Zoe 101. But after viewing the docuseries, Amber Frank, who starred as Taylor Hathaway in The Haunted Hathaways, shared another alarming incident she witnessed in the early days of the show. In a TikTok video, she recalled a time around 2013 when computers that contained explicit material arrived on the set.
It's beyond heartbreaking to know that a company that was employing children failed miserably at protecting them.
According to Frank, the matter was allegedly never investigated, and the person or people who were behind the disturbing content weren't named. She also shares her support for the victims of the several allegations in the docuseries.
I hope that we can create a very different environment moving forward.
Ali D'Ameco.
From what I'm understanding, probably the most healthiest set out of all the Nickelodeon shows. However, it did have a lot of toxic and not so healthy aspects.
Another actress who didn't participate in the docuseries, but watched when it aired, was Ali D'Ameco, most known as Rosalina from the Naked Brothers band. She also took to TikTok to discuss her personal Quiet on Set experience, specifically a scene she was forced to film. D'Ameco, who was young at the time, had to kiss an actor who was twice her age.
They made me kiss this 30-plus-year-old man when I was 14, 15. I told them many times I didn't want to do it. My mom was very against it.
Despite repeatedly saying she didn't want to do it, she felt it was implied that she would lose her job on the show if she didn't comply. Not only was this deeply traumatic for her, but it's shocking that this kind of scene was on a kid show that D'Ameco says young audiences saw as a documentary.
Particularly girls wanted to fight me in real life. I didn't have fans because they thought it was real life, and that I kissed this greasy ass, dusty ass.
Jack Salvatore Jr.
We could talk about the massages. We could talk about the fact that he would literally count his gold coin collection in front of his crew who was living paycheck to paycheck. We could talk about how sometimes he would bring out a shotgun to scare one of the writers when they were working at his house. We could talk about the high-level conversations I wasn't supposed to hear.
In addition to starring as Mark on Zoe 101, Jack Salvatore Jr. also worked behind the scenes on Dan Schneider's other shows, including Victorious and Salmon Cat. He exposed some shocking situations he witnessed involving Schneider's behavior, including a time when the producer allegedly scared a writer by pulling out a shotgun.
This is an entire industry built on hope and dreams and adrenaline and wish fulfillment. And that can be a very dangerous thing for megalomaniacs to wield.
One incredibly upsetting thing that he claimed to know about was the studio's callous mishandling of Jeanette McCurdy after she lost her mother to cancer. Salvatore Jr. said Nickelodeon discouraged providing the young actress with antidepressants, worrying any negative or fatal side effects could hurt their image.
Funny.
You're not laughing?
Yeah, I'm not in a real laughy mood.
Devin Werkheiser, Lindsay Shaw, and Daniel Curtis Lee.
I get it. If I had just watched especially that third episode and then watched us joking like that,
you would be upset.
I would be like, are they sociopaths?
One of the most talked about reactions to Quiet on Set was the cast of Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide, Devin Werkheiser, Lindsay Shaw, and Daniel Curtis Lee. In a live TikTok made before they allegedly even watched the series, Werkheiser and Lee appeared to joke about Drake Bell's allegations of abuse by dialogue coach Brian Peck.
We shouldn't joke about this. We really shouldn't.
This is awful. Why are we doing this?
Because this is about us.
Bell responded to their offensive remarks by calling them, quote, D-classless. After actually watching the docuseries, Werkheiser posted an apology. In an episode of their podcast, Ned's Declassified Podcast Survival Guide, Lee and Shaw also condemned their behavior and apologized. The trio stated that they briefly worked with Brian Peck and remember seeing that he was arrested in 2003.
I hate that this happened. I hate that, we compounded any trauma around this situation that means so much to each of us. And, I am sorry.
Alexa Nikolas.
I've been waiting 17 years for today.
Long before Quiet on Set, Alexa Nikolas was one of the most vocal former child stars speaking out against Nickelodeon and their practices. The Zoe 101 star was featured in the docuseries and has continued to highlight the horror stories of others who've shared their traumatic experiences and reactions to the docuseries. She also had a lot to say about Dan Schneider's apology video.
He's a mean guy. And now he's trying to look like he's just this nice guy that, kind of gets it and wants to blame everyone else.
While some former Nick stars like All That's Leon Frierson said that they did accept the producer's alleged remorse as a step in the right direction, Nikolas did not.
I don't even feel any remorse from him. He's not even crying. He's not even, I know everyone deals with their own emotions in their own way, but I don't feel anything from you, Dan. I don't feel a thing.
Josh Peck and Nancy Sullivan.
Could you excuse us?
Just for a moment.
Drake Bell was prominently featured in episodes 3 and 4 of Quiet on Set, discussing for the first time the abuse he suffered by Brian Peck. Since the premiere, Nancy Sullivan, Bell's on-screen mom from Drake and Josh, has publicly reacted to his interview, praising him for coming forward. But Bell had to post about his other co-star Josh Peck in response to people condemning him for not publicly speaking out immediately. Bell said that he'd already reached out and spoken to him privately.
It's been very sensitive, but he has reached out to talk with me and help me work through this, and has been really, really great. So
days later, Josh Peck posted a statement saying the docuseries brought up some revelations that he needed to process. He also showed his support for other survivors and advocated for much-needed changes in the industry.
People want to jump on everybody and get everybody, but focus on people who wrote letters of support. Focus on people who aren't coming out and saying that was a mistake.
What celeb do you want to hear from?
Such a big reaction from such a little comment. I don't think anyone was expecting it.
The big story in the room, as you know, is this documentary called Quiet on the Set, The Dark Side of Kids TV.
Welcome to Ms. Mojo, and today we're looking at more stars who've publicly commented on Investigation Discovery's shocking docuseries Quiet on Set.
But I just felt like it would be remiss if I didn't ask you, given it's so buzzy.
Yeah, I've been trying to figure out how to address it on social.
Angelique Bates.
From 1992 to 1996, I was a series regular on Nickelodeon's All That. I was only 12 years old, and that's when my nightmare began.
For years, Angelique Bates, one of the original All That cast members, has spoken out about being, quote, verbally and emotionally abused at Nickelodeon. In a March 2024 interview with The Blast, Bates detailed an alleged on-set incident when producer Dan Schneider yelled at her. She recalled that episode's guest director and others spoke to him, and he later apologized. Bates also discussed feeling tormented by fellow cast members and her mother rejecting the alleged advances of a producer.
The show was #1. It's just like all this love that I wasn't getting. So to have that taken away from you and not be able to do anything and not be able to make a living, it's hard.
According to the actress, she was asked and declined to participate in ID's Quiet on Set docuseries since her previous accusations resulted in backlash. After it premiered, Bates shared her support and well wishes for those who were able to finally open up.
That's what I live for, just to make sure that they're okay and they don't have to go through any of the things that I had to go through.
Michael Bauer.
Shouldn't we say a few words?
I'll say something.
Michael Bauer, best known for playing Eddie Donkey Lips Gelfin on Nickelodeon's Salute Your Shorts, didn't appear in the docuseries. But shortly after it aired, he released a video on his YouTube channel recalling a time in the early 1990s when a Nickelodeon executive allegedly preyed on him and a friend, giving them gifts and inviting them to theme parks.
Just hanging out with an older man. But then there was an instance where, because he was picking us up every once in a while in like a car, rental car, he invited us back to the hotel.
Two of the most shocking claims Bauer made were that this executive was likely involved in hiring Dan Schneider, and that Schneider himself hired Brian Peck, the dialogue coach accused of abusing Drake Bell, which the producer previously denied. Bauer also alleged that Peck was inappropriate with him while they worked on a film together, The Willies, trying to be around the actor while he was undressed.
At 14 or whatever age I am, I'm like, no. You ain't coming in here. Ain't nobody seeing me naked. I know how to change my own clothes. Yeah. I don't care. I don't care if you guys need to get ready for the next scene. I don't care.
Madison Shipman. While many viewers, former child actors, and other industry figures were shocked by the disturbing revelations in Quiet on Set, some still set out to defend Dan Schneider.
I'm sorry, did we start a new conversation? Yeah, what's happening here?
From 2015 to 2019, Madison Shipman starred as Kenzie Bell in one of the creator's Nickelodeon shows, Game Shakers. In a lengthy post to Instagram, she addressed the haters and, quote, close-minded trolls who condemned her for supporting Schneider. Shipman urged others to focus on, quote, viable information such as Brian Peck's criminal record, and reiterated that Drake Bell stated Schneider was a source of comfort during the harrowing time.
Dan just goes, "You don't need to talk anymore about it. That's all I needed to hear. Are you okay? Do you need anything from me? Is there anything that you need?"
She also seemingly dismissed the producer's alleged verbal abuse as, quote, some anger moments. Unsurprisingly, Shipman received heavy backlash for her insensitivity to the traumatic experiences of those who came forward.
Instead of spending the time that you took being the kind, wonderful person that you are, heart emoji, you could have literally made a letter saying that you support the victims, just that came forward, and I'm sorry if anyone out there has misinformation.
Giovanni Samuels and Brian Christopher Hearne.
It was freeing to get the role on All That, but that wasn't the reality.
On April 7th, 2024, Investigation Discovery will premiere a 5th episode as a follow-up to the initial 4-part docuseries Quiet on Set. Along with Drake Bell, former All That cast members Giovanni Samuels and Brian Christopher Hearne will return for another interview to discuss the revelations of previous episodes.
Your childhood is going to be a little tainted after watching it,
Yeah.
but I hope that it helps you protect the next group of kids that comes up.
Since the release, both Samuels and Hearne have kept the conversation going, showing appreciation for all the support from viewers and fans, as well as advocating for change in kids' television. Samuels also defended other former child stars, such as Ariana Grande and Amanda Bynes, who haven't yet made public statements. Joining Samuels and Hearne in the new episode will be another All That alum, Shane Lyons.
How did you get in here?
With the key.
Matthew Underwood. Matthew Underwood, aka Logan Reese on Zoe 101, responded to Quiet on Set with his own traumatic experience as a young actor. He denied having any bad interactions on set, but revealed that he was abused by his former agent, which was the catalyst that made him end his acting career. Underwood said he felt it was necessary to share some personal experiences due to being harassed online by people demanding him to comment on the docuseries. While people commended him for bravely sharing the pain he endured, others, including his former co-star and Quiet on Set participant Alexa Nikolas, felt part of his statement invalidated what others experienced.
When anyone is wanting to be an ally and saying that they support all of the victims, that they don't just downplay the predator, for example, as an asshole. That always feels icky.
Underwood took to Reddit to clarify. Melissa Joan Hart.
I'm making a statement, or I will be, as soon as I figure out exactly what that statement is.
From 1991 to 1994, Melissa Joan Hart starred as the titular teen Clarissa Darling in Clarissa Explains It All. On a March 29th episode of the Meghan McCain Has Entered the Chat podcast, Hart said she'd not yet watched Quiet on Set herself. However, she expressed she was in full support of the survivors.
I have to say I've never heard a story from a Nickelodeon star personally. No one's come to me and talked to me about any of these situations. And that's not to say anything about anyone's story that they, I absolutely trust them, believe them 100%.
Unlike the shows covered in the docuseries, Clarissa Explains It All was filmed at Nickelodeon's Universal Studios location in Orlando, Florida. Aside from long hours and a packed schedule, Hart said she had a positive experience and worked in an environment she felt was safe with people looking out for her.
There were some good eggs. There were some people that really took care of me. I mean, to be honest, a few of them are still my very best friends. So, from the producers down to, the sound guys, all took care of me. And we were a wonderful family.
Kenan Thompson.
I have fond memories of that place, and I have fond memories of, my co-stars and stuff like that. So to hear that they've gone through terrible things like that it's really tough.
These days, Kenan Thompson is known as a longtime cast member of Saturday Night Live. But 90s kids first got to know him on hit shows All That and the spin-off Kenan and Kel. At the end of March 2024, the SNL cast member appeared on the Tamron Hall show and was visibly upset while opening up about how hard it was to view the docuseries.
I think it's a good thing that the doc is out and it's, putting things, on display that need to be, stories that need to be told for this, accountability's sake. But it's definitely tough to watch.
Although Dan Schneider was credited as a writer and/or producer on the two Nickelodeon shows Thompson starred in, as well as the 1997 movie spin-off Good Burger, the actor-comedian claimed he wasn't around Schneider often. Still, he expressed his support for the victims and their families and believed that people should, quote, investigate more. Will you be watching episode 5?
We also reached out, of course, to the production company, and they said that, they investigate all of these things, investigate all of the allegations.
Well, investigate more.
There's no question that the Quiet on Set documentary has changed the way we view some of our favorite childhood shows. Here now are some scenes that have taken on a whole new meaning.
I've been waiting for someone to question the climate. It's been a long time coming.
Welcome to Ms. Mojo, and today we're looking at Nickelodeon moments mentioned in Quiet on Set that seemed like kids' stuff at the time, but in retrospect feel problematic, cringy, or downright creepy.
The show is full of these uncomfortable sketches. I think that Dan got a kick out of walking a line with that.
Number 10, Lil Fetus, All That. Brian Christopher Hearne stood out as one of the few black cast members during his seasons on All That. Hearne got the sense that Dan Schneider favored his white co-stars.
I didn't feel close to him at all. My time on Nickelodeon played a big part in how I dealt and still deal with racial issues.
This was reflected in multiple sketches, including one where Hearne had to sell cookies as if he were a drug dealer. There were more blatant instances of racism behind the scenes.
Yo, embryo, I'm still here, gestating, waiting, and incubating.
To portray a rapper named Lil Fetus, Hearne had to wear a bodysuit that matched his skin tone. Hearne isn't sure who, but when he was being fitted, somebody said that the costume should be the same color as charcoal. A crew member could tell that this comment deeply hurt Hearne, attempting to comfort him. Hearne, nonetheless, decided against telling his mom.
I know my mom, and I know that she would have rose hell.
Number 9. In the Jacuzzi with Dan, The Amanda Show.
Dan and Amanda had a close relationship, and I didn't think anything different than that. The hot tub scene, though, I thought was always a little odd.
Amanda's Jacuzzi was a recurring sketch on The Amanda Show. Wearing a bathing suit, star Amanda Bynes would interview a fully dressed guest in the hot tub with her. Cameos included Elvis, Babe Ruth, and Amelia Earhart. It was weird, but innocent enough, except for the time Dan Schneider joined her.
And he's kind of saying, I created the situation. I am the reason we are in this hot tub. I am pulling the strings.
Like the other guests, Schneider was fully clothed, making the idea of him hot tubbing with an underage girl a little less icky. Yet it's hard to watch the scene without thinking about Schneider's real-life dynamic with Bynes, namely how he tried to help her get emancipated.
The details are a little bit murky, but we know from sources that the police were involved. And we also know that Amanda's parents are really, really upset with Dan's actions through this.
Schneider might not be responsible for everything that's gone wrong during Bynes' adulthood, although his impact during her childhood arguably contributed to her future struggles. Number 8. Noseboy, All That. Joining All That in Season 4, Leon Frierson appeared in memorable sketches like Leroy and Fuzz, but he looks back at a particular character with awkward memories. He played a superhero named Noseboy.
What are your special powers?
The former child star already felt exposed in a tight leotard, although a few other additions to the costume elevated the discomfort. In addition to wearing a large nose on his face, the costume's shoulder pads came with prominent noses that looked more like, well, something that should have been censored.
This is a child playing this role, and he's playing it for other children. His audience is kids as young as 6.
You could argue that we're just seeing things, but 2 things hammer home the innuendo. 1. Noseboy sneezes snot on people, echoing another bodily function. 2. It's a Dan Schneider show. It's safe to say he knew what he was doing.
I get to write all the scripts with some very talented writers, but I can put them in any horrible predicament I choose.
Number 7. Judge Trudy Classroom Sketch, The Amanda Show. Quiet on Set spotlights an Amanda Show sketch where Judge Trudy takes her court to a classroom. The sketch itself is harmless, but there is a darker backstory buried there.
Overruled! Excuse me. Overruled! What part confuses you? The over or the ruled?
The sketch included an extra named Brandy, who grew up loving Nickelodeon and was excited to get her start in the industry. During this time, Brandy was befriended by a Nickelodeon production assistant named Jason Handy.
She thought, oh, this is somebody else on the set that seemed to be so nice, and she would have a friend in the industry. I thought, oh, this is going well.
Conversing online, it appeared that Handy was just being nice and wanted to help further Brandy's career. After Brandy received an indecent image, though, it became clear that he wanted something far more depraved. Her mother initially avoided contacting the police, but the authorities eventually found that Brandy was just one of the children Handy had been inappropriate with.
There was never any apology to Brandy herself for what happened. Everything got swept under the rug.
Number 6. On-Air Dares, Snick. They made it look like so much fun on TV, but being a Nickelodeon star can come with some gross baggage. The sugar and coffee sketch is one example.
It was taxing, and frankly, like if you look at the sketch, it's gross. Like it would congeal into this gross, viscous goo. It was weird.
For Brian Christopher Hearne, nothing was more stomach-churning than the on-air dares. SNL for kids is one thing, although Fear Factor for kids may have been asking too much from the All That cast. In this recurring Snick bit, Hearne recalled being covered in peanut butter and having dogs lick him.
That sounds like some kind of awkward fantasy from some freaky dude. It was really uncomfortable. I didn't like that.
The visual discomfort Hearne expresses doesn't even begin to describe how he felt inside. While we wouldn't want to be in Hearne's place, we'd still probably take the peanut butter over putting a scorpion in our mouth, which was another dare.
If there's anything on set that I wish I could have yelled, stop, let's not do this, I'm out, It's still on there, Darius.
Number 5, Penelope Taint, The Amanda Show.
Hey, get back in line!
Sir, apparently you don't realize who I am, please.
Amanda Bynes played an assortment of colorful characters on her show, most notably Penelope Taint. Amanda's #1 fan, Penelope is essentially a stalker. While any kid can see that Penelope isn't right in the head, her last name eluded children and even adults.
I remember someone from Nickelodeon sitting with us and saying like, oh, does this mean, this dirty thing? And Dan was like, no, why would you think that?
When asked about the name's meaning, Dan Schneider said that it referred to tainting something. In reality, Penelope's surname was inspired by the area between one private part and another.
There's something so slimy about connecting this sexualized genitalia joke with a little girl who's portraying a little girl too.
Schneider explicitly instructed the crew not to tell the higher-ups. We could imagine the censors turning a blind eye to a one-off character, but a recurring one? If you feel like this ruins your childhood, please file a complaint at www.amandaplease.com. Seriously, look it up on Internet Archive.
So, what do you guys think of my website?
Come with us.
But I'm Penelope Tate! I'm Amanda's biggest fan!
Number 4, Juicing a Potato, Victorious. Ariana Grande is such an iconic pop star that it's easy to forget she got her start as Cat Valentine on Victorious. Watching Quiet on Set, we're not sure how we forgot about some of the uncomfortably sexualized bits Grande had to partake in.
With that show, there were online extras that the network did not fully know how to deal with.
These ranged from putting tomatoes in a bra, to spilling water on her chest while on a bed, to putting her foot in her mouth. Dan Schneider shows had a lot of foot and mouth stuff. Yet, we're pretty sure that Grande was the only one asked to milk a potato. On the food chain of bad taste, potatoes might not be as suggestive as bananas or eggplant, but there's a reason why you can't do that on television.
We're adults, so we know what's going on. But this is a show for kids, so who is sexual innuendo for on a kids show?
Number 3, Something on Your Face, Zoe 101.
I really feel bad. Here, then have another goop off. Thanks.
Looking back at some moments from Zoe 101, we're inclined to ask, was that intentional? Alexa Nikolas, who played Nicole Bristow, will tell you yes.
It's appalling behavior on all the adults' behalf that day.
Nikolas recalled a particularly traumatic episode where her character accidentally squirts a tube-based snack called Goo Pop on Jamie Lynn Spears' face. One could argue that this is in the spirit of Nickelodeon's trademark slime, but the substance's shape and texture call something else to mind. We're not grasping at suggestive straws. According to Nikolas, somebody on set called out what the Goo Pop shot actually looked like. Not every young actor knew what this meant then, although they certainly do now.
I was like, oh. Wasn't funny. It still isn't funny to me, to be honest. It's just like, that's a kid.
The scene's sexualized nature is only made more uncomfortable knowing the pregnancy scandal Spears later faced. Number 2, Dan Schneider's Lifetime Achievement Award, 27th Kids' Choice Awards. In over 30 years, the Kids' Choice Awards have given out their Lifetime Achievement Prize to 2 individuals, Optimus Prime and Dan Schneider. One aged better than the other. In 2014, Nickelodeon stars from the past and present gathered to honor Schneider.
He is surrounded by so many different people from all the shows.
They're talking about how great he is.
Thank you, Dan. You're an inspiration!
Speaking about how key he was to their careers.
Having created so many hit shows for the network, Schneider seemed worthy of such praise. In only a few years, though, the public started to see Schneider in a different light.
For decades, Dan seemed like he was untouchable. But around 2017, the internet videos around Dan really started gaining momentum.
For all the careers Schneider helped launch, many felt victimized by him. Few have a lower opinion of Schneider than Jeanette McCurdy, who didn't show up to present this award. Some moments aside, we still enjoy many of these Nickelodeon shows, but we'll never look at their creator the same way again.
Dan, he behaved in a way that was pretty concerning and problematic, especially when it comes to women, and how he treated people as a boss on set.
Number 1, Pickle Boy, All That.
Look, there's Brian Peck, aka Pickle Boy.
There was something very wrong with Pickle Boy. We're not talking about the time he handed a pickle to Ray Romano through a hole, although that did push some boundaries. In addition to playing Pickle Boy, Brian Peck served as a dialogue coach on multiple Nickelodeon shows, working with young stars like Drake Bell. There were evident red flags that Peck shouldn't be anywhere near children, such as his friendship with John Wayne Gacy. Yet Bell was caught off guard as Peck allegedly groomed and assaulted him.
I was just trapped, and I had no way out.
Only sentenced to 16 months, Peck received support from famous friends at the time and even found some prominent work after his conviction. Having watched Quiet on Set, though, more people are seeing the problem with Pickle Boy.
I'll see you in hell. Okay, see you there.
Has Quiet on Set made you question any other Nickelodeon moments?
It raises some confusing questions on who to hold accountable.
When something like this comes to light, a big question is always, why didn't anyone say anything? Well, as it turns out, many people tried to warn us.
Nickelodeon could have been there to be a buffer more than they were, and I don't think the network was ever close to doing that.
Welcome to Ms. Mojo, and today we're taking a look at former Nickelodeon stars who tried to warn us of the network's shady behavior.
I don't know what's up with him, but all I do know is that he put children in vulnerable positions that he legit wrote himself.
Ashley Argota Torres. In the world of Nickelodeon sitcoms, Argota and her co-stars are typically left out of the conversation. This is partially because the show she starred in, True Jackson VP, didn't run as long as the other shows.
When did you get here?
A while ago. My bad, I should have texted you.
Since the show ended in 2011, Argota has found a more successful career between recurring appearances on various Disney projects, as well as making a number of music albums and singles. Knowing her past at Nickelodeon, fans have asked her why she never sang on True Jackson VP, to which she replied on Twitter, quote, "The other network never gave me the opportunity." Meanwhile, Nickelodeon Records would get behind Drake Bell, Emma Roberts, Jamie Lynn Spears, the Naked Brothers Band, Big Time Rush, and even Miranda Cosgrove with their potential in music.
We're gonna explode all over you in just a minute, but first, I'd like to send out some shouts to some very special people I see here in the crowd.
Alistair Gillis.
Alistair, what are you doing? Oh, hi, Christine. Well, I'm trying to figure out the secret ingredients to green slime.
Gillis was one of many actors to appear on You Can't Do That on television after Nickelodeon picked up the Canadian show to create a version for the US. Many sketches danced around absurdities and the occasional shock humor, but Gillis recounts some instances that may have crossed the line.
I think this show was written by a sicko.
Actually, most of it's written by one of the older kids. I had him read.
I guess we're in for a real painful show.
Especially as today's show is about punishment.
In the book Slimed, An Oral History of Nickelodeon's Golden Age, Gillis told author Matthew Klickstein, quote, "There are some things I might question in retrospect. Fat jokes about Lisa? Probably not the healthiest thing for kids. Given the new information we know today regarding body weight, many of these jokes come off as insensitive and mean-spirited."
Look, you don't want to do that. His name is Francois.
Jonan Vasquez.
And now, girl, to test my evil plan on this child.
The animation side of Nickelodeon has also seen its own pressure from Nickelodeon's higher-ups. Many animators began resenting SpongeBob SquarePants as the network kept pushing for shows to be like our favorite Sea Sponge. One such case was with Jonan Vasquez, the creator of the notoriously dark cartoon Invader Zim.
Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't, but it's at least memorable and shows the telltale signs of my approach.
Former staff of the show have claimed that Nickelodeon executives would constantly pressure them to make Invader Zim a brighter, more cheery show. This is likely what spawned the episode Zim Eats Waffles, which shows our little Irken attempting to try waffles with his human test subject Nick. Many believe that Vasquez and his team were taking a jab at their bosses here.
And how is the happiness probe in your brain doing today, filthy human?
It's great! I never want to leave this magical place. I'm so happy!
Angelique Bates.
When I was a child star, dealing with aspects of the child abuse, it pretty much affected the workplace, which later affected my adulthood because I was blackballed.
One of the most alarming facts about Bates is that she was the first cast member of All That to leave the show, and one of the first of Nickelodeon's child actors to speak up about problems occurring at the network. Having only been around for 2 out of the 11 seasons, one can't help but wonder what might have caused her departure.
When CPS came, I was pressured by all the adults that were set to protect me to stay silent. I did, and I have. But I can no longer stay silent, and I won't.
In 2022, Bates came out along with several other actors against producer Dan Schneider, recalling an incident where he yelled at her so intensely that she left the set in tears. Not only does this further cement the allegations of Schneider creating a harmful work environment, it also adds to the allegations of discrimination other Black child actors have made against him.
We got impressions on what the climate was like immediately. First day filming.
Avon Jogia.
Dan was Nickelodeon's golden boy. And even if he and the network were at odds, he had the power to push back. It was very hard to say anything to him. And his show, Victorious, took this to a whole new level.
Compared to the other Nickelodeon sitcoms, Victorious seems to have the most damning evidence of creepy and unsettling treatment taking place both on and off the set. Avon Jogia, who played Beck on the show, specifically revealed in a 2020 TikTok post some of the inappropriate behavior that took place. Despite having little to no memory shooting Victorious's episodes, he does remember drinking and partying every night. Another former child actor also revealed that someone she refers to as the creator would give alcohol to the Victorious cast, but we will get to her in a bit.
I brought the butter sock. It's not her fault. We're both victims.
Daniela Monet.
The business is a weird world. Like, I'll start there. It is like, it's such a bubble in a sense that, like, there are things that happen every day that you just are, like, accustomed to and would not fly in another work environment.
Of the Victorious cast, Monet was arguably the loudest of the bunch when Dan Schneider started to come under fire in 2022. Monet went on record to say that she felt there were a few scenes where she felt the cast was being sexualized. One example she recalled involved her putting on makeup while consuming a pickle.
Pickles? Look, this is the mind of Dan Schneider. You gotta ask him.
There was this referencing to like, oh yeah, Dan just has a weird sense of humor.
Monet reportedly brought up its potentially sexual nature to Nickelodeon, but the network ignored her and aired the episode despite her concerns. She would further point out that some of the clothing choices that cast members would wear were, quote, not age appropriate.
Happy birthday, Trina! Thanks! So where's my present?
Devin Werkheiser. Though it doesn't have anything to do with Schneider, Werkheiser's problems with Nickelodeon do add to the network's long list of allegations regarding favoritism.
Oh, I get it. We're more mature now, and you need time away from our extreme manliness.
The main lead of Ned's declassified school survival guide, Werkheiser has stated he felt like Nickelodeon didn't give the show as much attention compared to the network's other massive hits. Along with former co-stars Lindsay Shaw and Daniel Curtis Lee, he has scrutinized Nickelodeon for not paying him any residuals on the show, despite the rejuvenated popularity thanks to streaming platforms.
This is a very old deal. This was 20 years ago, but our union at the time made a deal with the studios to not pay their leads residuals, and that has had lasting impact on our life.
Werkheiser even went and protested in front of Paramount, which shares its parent company with Nickelodeon, leading up to the 2023 SAG-AFTRA strike. Drake Bell has also voiced similar problems regarding residual checks for Drake and Josh.
$800 a grill. Maybe that's one. Oh, right. $8,000 a grill. $8 a grill.
Ariana Grande.
Gotcha! Let's go! No! We have to go talk! I don't want to talk to you!
The pop star has been noticeably quiet about speaking out against Nickelodeon, which only stirs up more conspiracies. However, Grande has made one comment regarding her time at the network when she played Cat Valentine in both Victorious and Salmon Cat. Way back in 2014, during the start of her music career, Grande spoke to People magazine, describing her time at Nickelodeon as frustrating. In her eyes, Cat was, quote, a character that was nothing like myself.
Maybe your red hair dye seeps through your scalp and into your brain.
Can that happen?
Looking back on Victorious, there were many moments where Cat seemed to be not too bright. Now, after watching Quiet on Set, it's disturbing to think about how Schneider and his writers might have seen her.
Help! I need a teacher! Please, teacher!
Hello, girls! Can you believe
believe I scored tickets to Hall & Oates?
Alexa Nikolas.
Dan Schneider never really seemed to care about how he was portraying children. He definitely didn't care about the, off-camera roles either, on how he treated, like, someone like myself. And then in front of camera, it seems very, exploitative.
While Nikolas has seen continued success in acting, having appeared on shows like The Walking Dead and Mad Men, she's also used her stardom to put Nickelodeon on blast. In recent years, Nikolas has stated how she felt unsafe during her time at Nickelodeon, particularly when Dan Schneider was around. According to Nikolas, Schneider kept the work environment tense as he yelled at staff and always wanted to be present during her costume fittings.
He would sit in the chair, and I would come out and I would do a spin, and then he would look at the wardrobe artist and say, "Can I have the Polaroids?"
I just got a full body chill.
It's bad.
Adding to her unease is the infamous shot where co-star Jamie Lynn Spears had green goo shot on her face. Nikolas recalls people laughing and referring to the shot as one you would see in an adult film.
Wasn't funny. It still isn't funny to me, to be honest. It's just that's a kid.
Jeanette McCurdy. McCurdy has long had problems with Nickelodeon and Dan Schneider, so much so that simply hearing the names of the show she's worked on and the name of her character cause her to tense up. At first, she spoke up about her experiences in somewhat subtle ways, such as in her web series What's Next for Sarah, which tells the story of an actress whose life begins to crumble after her show gets canceled. But when she released her book I'm Glad My Mom Died in 2022, McCurdy exposed everything.
I think I've chosen a path of integrity. And it hasn't always been easy.
Referring to someone only known as the creator, McCurdy reveals several instances where this person, widely believed to be Schneider, created a toxic work environment and forced her and other actors to drink alcohol. She even claimed that Nickelodeon offered McCurdy $300,000 to never speak about her experiences on set.
I just said, no, it's not happening. That sounds like hush money to me. Not doing it, not taking it.
Since the memoir came out, many former Nickelodeon staff have come out to tell their stories, eventually leading up to the biggest disturbance that we now know as quiet on set. The sad part is that there are likely hundreds more out there waiting to speak up.
My hope is that with every voice that comes out, something changes. Maybe today's the day. I don't know.
Which actor's story about Nickelodeon shocked you the most?
Let's talk about revenge. Once again, I offer the butter sock.
All right, well, that's going to do it for this shocking look at the Quiet on Set docuseries. Thanks for watching. I've been Matt from WatchMojo, and I'll see you next time.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.